'em if you got 'em, and if you don't, well, it'd be a lot cooler if you did. It's Tuesday. It's the PD Skillz Show. If you're watching on YouTube, you've already figured it out. For those of you at home listening on Spotify or on the road on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Podbean, wherever you're listening, I'm riding solo this week. Well, for the sole reason that life happens. I try and line a guest up every week. Some weeks it's going to happen. Some weeks it's not. And to be honest, the PD Skillz Show was never meant to just be an interview show. It is a pro wrestling podcast in all its forms. So this week, we're doing things a little bit differently. Just going to shoot the shit for a little bit with you guys. Yeah, I mean, if that's okay. If it's not, fuck you, tune out. I'm just kidding, but seriously. So get some plugs in right away. For those of you not familiar with the show, you can always find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those good things at PD Skillz Show. Nice and simple. And for those of you that have been here before, I hope you enjoy the show. If you do, feel free to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of those lovely places. Like I said, at PD Skillz Show, grab a t-shirt, help support the cause, whether it be the show or my dirty habit for beating the shit out of people and diving in barbed wire. That's great, and I appreciate it. So right now at this time, it's no secret, the show is pre-recorded. I'm actually sitting down just watching Raw and kind of just wanted to jam with you guys and see where this goes today. So I mean, interesting Raw so far. To be totally honest, I know it's easy to be an armchair critic, quite literally, as I sit in my chair. But Raw's probably been the harder of these shows to watch lately. And it's not due to the effort of the guys or anything like that. It's really just the show for me. And I mean, maybe it's the Thunderdome. Maybe that's just not doing it for me. I mean, speaking of which, it was great for NXT this weekend to see, the biggest live crowd they've been able to have at the CWC since opening that. And, I'll kind of touch base a little bit on that. But yeah, just watching Raw and a lot of wrestlers that I really, really dig on the show, but for some reason the show just isn't getting like to a great. The show's not hitting home. There it is. It just isn't doing it for me lately. And like I said, lots of great wrestlers. Like right now, I should warn you, there's going to be spoilers on this. If you haven't watched wrestling over the weekend, you haven't watched Monday Night Raw, turn me off, but like check me out later. Like I'm not saying leave me forever. So yeah, right now I'm laughing because they've got Riddle and Orton coming out. And like that's, I say I've had a hard time watching Raw, but they are a definite fucking highlight of this show. Two totally different guys, but they are playing so well off each other. It's like the goofy little brother and the serious older brother. It's just taken a life of its own. And I mean, Riddle still gets it done in the ring, but as a character, this dude just fucking makes me laugh. And they're really doing this perfect. And it's kind of giving me an opportunity to see another side of Randy Orton that is rather amusing. And, speaking of, them being on screen, what they're doing right now, another thing going right with Raw is New Day. Always fucking love them. This gear they've got going on with the White Ranger, Green Ranger gear. And then before they had Scorpion and Sub-Zero, just fucking great. And I mean, obviously they're good wrestlers, like great wrestlers too. I'm a fucking gear guy when I'm watching, and I fucking dig what they do. So yeah, Raw, it's been definitely the toughest to watch. I mean, AEW's got crowds coming back, or has had crowds back, not coming back, and that's been great. NXT just got the CWC to their, a decent crowd size over the weekend. Impact still doing the empty venue tapings, but I mean, at this point, everybody's kind of doing things at their own pace. Like WWE went back to fans on the main roster for WrestleMania, but then right back to the Thunderdome. And it's, for me, that actually kind of, them going back to the Thunderdome almost made it harder for me to enjoy WrestleMania, knowing they were going back to that like the next night, because it was only temporary. Like it was for one night only, and then they were going back to the way things were. And well, I mean, to the way things have been for the pandemic, as far as the Thunderdome, almost to the point where when I watched Double or Nothing, like, because they really brought it as far as crowd size there, that was more exciting for me, because it wasn't just the crowd back for one night only. It was like their true return to having fans in attendance, and it was a fucking rocking night. And actually, I was kind of worried. I thought it was weird that on, their big return to fans, that they would do that stadium stampede match. And I was like, I mean, they're obviously going to be smart enough to do something where it plays back into the crowd, and obviously they did that, and it turned out great. I loved the entire show top to bottom. But yeah, the fans being back and knowing that they were back in full swing for AEW, I felt made a big difference, where maybe that's one of the things that are missing from Raw. Obviously, the Thunderdome's cool, it's impressive, it's a different way for people to interact, but it's not the same. But it's hard for me to, pin it necessarily on the Thunderdome. It's hard, I don't know what to pin it on, because I watch SmackDown, and SmackDown, I think right now is the better show. I mean, maybe that's because, I mean, fuck, it's weird to say this. I mean, weirder things have been said in 2021, but Roman Reigns is putting on a fucking clinic right now as far as professional wrestling goes. And I mean, you can see the pieces there. I mean, everybody wanted him to go heel. It's not like he had go away heat. No one was saying he needs to go away. People were saying he needed to be a heel. And I mean, that's paying off big time now, because like, we're marking out tonight. Roman Reigns makes it very easy to forget it's the Thunderdome. He does a great job at it. Like, I can't say enough about that for people who like to, shit on WWE or shit on guys like Roman Reigns. Like, I don't give a fuck what you say. He is putting in work right now, and there is no fucking denying that. None. If you think that's not the fucking case, you're out of your mind. Because I watch Raw, I watch SmackDown, both shows top to bottom. I mean, they're the WWE, and not to sound like a fucking mark, but they've got some of the best fucking talent in the world. Of course they do. The WWE, that's accessible to them. They're in a position where they have what they want, and those stars are there. But they're in on both shows. But there is a big difference right now between Raw and SmackDown, and that's why I say it's like, the thing about Raw, I can't necessarily put my finger on it. Is that the storylines is like what? Because I mean, yes, Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre is getting uh stale as fuck at this point. Uh but I mean, where else do you go with it? You look at everybody that they've got on the roster, and they are, I mean, the roster now, post cuts, and they've got stuff going on with most of their main guys, but like, it's just that fresh combination isn't really there right now. And like Bobby Lashley, again, as far as the feud goes with Drew McIntyre, they took away the possibilities to keep it fresh and keep it exciting, in my opinion, when they took Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander out of the Hurt Business. I mean, call me like a wrestling traditionalist, or maybe it's played out, but I like when the champion's got a couple goons by his side, gives the guy on the chase a couple guys to run through. I think that's, I think that's one of the better ways to continue a feud, as far as keeping a wrestler active without him actually having to directly wrestle the guy he's in the feud with. And I think that kind of hurts it, is the Hurt Business, no pun intended, hurts it. The Hurt Business was so much stronger then, and I was actually super excited about it. Like I was over on all of them, and I was actually like really excited about Raw. Like, what are they going to do with the Hurt Business? And maybe that's could that be the problem that I have with Raw, is where every time there's something I kind of get excited about, like example, like hate it if you will, Raw Underground was a little over the fucking top, but I mean, with some tweaking, I thought it could have been something cool. I mean, a lot of people shit on it, and I get why. As it was, I mean, shit away. Uh, but I thought it was pretty cool, and maybe that's one thing where it doesn't fit the formula of good things going away. But to me, it was good, and it was there, and it was fucking gone. And then the Hurt Business geared up, a lot of members, and then it was gone. I mean, but I mean, there's also the reverse of that during the pandemic era is retribution is something I couldn't fucking stand, and now that's done, and I'm pretty happy about that. Nothing to do with the workers, because they're all the guys that they put in that group are great in the ring, and I've even seen them do great as a character. But retribution, the execution, without pointing fingers at anybody, was the drizzling shits. Um, so yes, moving on. A couple of things from the show tonight. Just while we're watching Raw, I'm just chilling, and Nikki Cross, Charlotte Flair, they started off the show. That's can't complain about that. So far, the show's been good, because I mean they've had that. They had Jeff Hardy versus Johnny Gimmick Name, and then they had again the New Day, and then RK Bro. So I mean, so far Raw has been good as far as like the wrestling, and as far as a couple of the little non-wrestling interactions and moments, but there hasn't been that big suspense. Like, I don't know what the main is right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I came in like 10 minutes late, so I mean they may have already announced it, but I mean they're not selling me on a main event or anything. And that's weird to me. Like, there's just, like I said, there's not that excitement there. They've talked about, they've pushed Hell in a Cell. They've had that going on. But who knows? I mean, obviously, I'm only part way into the show. It's not like I'm sitting here for the whole 3 hours either. That'd be fucking ridiculous. I sit here and say, it's one of the hardest shows to watch. I'm not going to get you guys to sit here and watch the whole thing with me. And honestly, I'm not going to fucking talk about Raw the whole time. There's other things to talk about. Like we had an Impact Wrestling pay-per-view this past weekend, and it was a fucking cool show. Like I said, they don't have, I kind of alluded to earlier, they don't have fans back in attendance in the arena yet. And again, everybody at their pace. Like I said, WWE is still doing this, uh, Thunderdome thing, but Impact was sweet. They had some good matches. Women's tag action was great. I love that they have, like, as far as I know, that WWE has women tag titles now, and they've got them on NXT. But I still think, as far as women's wrestling, I think Impact does the best job at consistently putting effort into their women's division as far as long-standing track records. NXT does a great job. AEW has great talent, and is like, I mean, obviously they all have great talent, but I just, long term, I feel like Impact has done their best with keeping the women at the forefront and making sure that they've looked important. And then there was the X Division match there to determine the number one contender. That, I mean, for a multi-man match to kind of end no contest was really weird. I didn't catch that live, and to be honest, I didn't totally, like, when I first watched it, it didn't dawn on me that that's what happened. I was watching that. I had some other things on the go, and I was like, what? Like, I didn't realize it ended that way at first until somebody had told me that, like, later on. And I'm like, well, I mean, if there's one thing, like if I got to play armchair booker and say this has to lead to one thing, I'm hoping it's Ultimate X. And I mean, maybe that's the route they're going with it. Because I mean, Josh, I'm from Ontario. For those of you that didn't already know that, but I'm sure most of the people watching the show do. Uh, Josh Alexander, straight fucking killing it in Impact Wrestling right now, and I think that would be a great payoff to that finish of the match. And the lack of number one contender, so to speak, is for Josh Alexander to then defend it in an Ultimate X match. I love those matches, always have. I mean, the idea of having Petey Williams in the match with him, also dope, a fucking pioneer of the X division. It would be, probably meaningful for Josh Alexander too. I mean, being another, fellow Ontarian and obviously therefore Canadian, Petey Williams is a big influence on a lot of the guys like, my age and younger, as far as, professional wrestling goes and his style goes. A lot of people like to, make jokes about the Destroyer being a transitional move now, and which is fuck that people use it that way. But I mean, really, you see that move so often, and it's his. It's him that got it out there, at least in, maybe someone's doing it before, but not in as popular fashion as Pete Williams was. So that'd be a really cool thing to see, anyways. So I digress. the the only way that this makes sense is gotta be Ultimate X, and I hope that's the case. And then they did things a little bit differently for the main event. They did Moose and Kenny Omega at Dailies, and that was kind of different. I don't know what you know what the game plan behind that or the reasoning for it was. I don't know if it was travel was easier for one than the other at that point. They wanted to try something different. They wanted to, do a different, like a big fight feel and make it different. And I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I know what Daly's places look like for AEW, and maybe that is where my kind of gripe was with Impact doing it that way. Is they took away where the fan seating is from the hard camera, and it was just kind of all blacked out, and it was really weird to me. And I mean, it was cool that there was like people in the crowd, for that main event, but at the end of the day, I actually thought that Impact Studio, where they venue where they've been doing the tapings, actually looked cooler than Daly's place. The way it was done up for the Impact main event, like when I was watching it live, like the joke was that it looked like the WWE 2K games after all the downloaded content crashed when it first came out, because it was just black apron, blacked out crowd, blacked out, like just plain black guardrails. It just really plain looking, and I actually really love Impact's studio setup, the way they've been doing their shows during the pandemic. I actually said once they got that piped in crowd, because that piped in crowd makes such a big difference, that once they had that piped in crowd, they were my favorite setup as far as wrestling during the pandemic. I just thought it was a nice, clean little set. It wasn't overdone. And yeah, just the main event being at Daly's place in kind of a minimalist fashion as far as the design went, it was just a weird call for me. The match was really great. uh they did a good job. Moose scared the shit out of me, as they did Spanish Fly off the top there, and that scared the shit out of me. Aside from that, though, I thought it was a good match. Like, Moose is a guy who's come a long fucking ways from being a football player transitioning into the world of professional wrestling. I mean, at the end of the day, a natural athlete is gonna, keep pushing forward, and his work shows off. Like, dude's in fucking incredible shape now. Like, he was already a professional athlete, and it like his shape now is just fucking incredible. And he kept the pace with Kenny Omega. Do I think we're gonna see 6 stars from Dave Meltzer on that one? No, I mean the stars have already probably been assigned at this time. Honestly, I just haven't looked into them. Uh, but I thought it was a really good match. I really enjoyed that pay-per-view. And then going the next night, they had next pay-per-view, NXT. Fuck, you know I try to watch as much wrestling as I can. Like I said, I watched Impact, and then I watched NXT last night. I'm sitting here, trucking through Raw while I talk to you guys. And NXT was again like really a good pay-per-view, a good moment to see. CWC getting more fans and less screens. They're going through that transitional phase, and the crowd was really eating it up. I mean, there's a couple times where the crowd's off cue, and that was one of the funny things to watch. They'd be like, this following contest is scheduled for one fall, and the announcer wasn't giving the crowd no time to do the one fall, and they went for it, and it just made enough time. So it's funny because like the crowd almost has to deal with having ring rust as much as a wrestler would after a break. The timing's not there, the timing's not right, and a few things have changed. And even if it's maybe it wasn't the crowd, maybe it was the announcer, maybe announcers aren't used to leaving that gap and giving the fans that opportunity to put their input, which will actually be interesting to see with some of the wrestlers. I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe you won't see that at the television level, because at the television level they're at the top of the game. They've been doing it for long enough that I'm sure they're immediately going to improve being back in front of a crowd and feeding off that crowd. But I just wonder if at some points we might see the wrestling be a little bit different, because maybe they're not used to working it with the crowd. So maybe that's where the rust will come in for the wrestlers, when crowds are there full time. And I mean, with AEW, that's the case. And crowds are there full time, and I haven't really seen a change there. But I mean, who knows? Could be the case anywhere. So yeah, NXT, great fucking pay-per-view. Again, not to sound like a mark. I know I'm sitting here saying everything's great. This is great. This is great. There's some shit things, but I'm not gonna sit here and shit on the things I think are terrible. I mean, one, I never want to rule out the possibility of working anywhere in any capacity. And two, it's just not productive. I mean, I'm not here to give other wrestlers advice. There's some things I don't like, I might nitpick, but at the end of the day, like, why fucking sit here and tear it down? We know what we like, we know what we don't. So if you find me overly positive about the show, it's just because I don't want to shit on things. Like, I mean, if you watch the show, the low points. I'd rather just, skim the high points and call it a day, unless it's, super terrible and fucking tragedy to professional wrestling. But that's not the fucking case here. Like, come on. So NXT main event, super fire. They had the fatal 5-way match. And the fatal 5-way main event, I thought did a great job. Going into the match, I thought Karrion Kross was going to win. And that was the result. I mean, Karrion Kross did win, but they did a good job at even getting me to suspend disbelief for that moment, where even though the wrestler and the analyst / market me knew that Karrion Kross was coming out with the belt, or at least thought he knew. I mean, anything can happen. Shit changes, injuries happen. But I mean, as far as where it looked like they were going, I knew Karrion Kross was walking out. but they got me at moments. There was moments where I thought maybe I'm fucking wrong, and that's when wrestling is absolutely beautiful, is when things like that happen. And shit, as far as other highlights on that show, on the NXT show, they had the ladder match for the $1 million championship. Super exciting. For those of you that don't know, I actually had the chance to work with Ted DiBiase before. Back in PWX, he actually managed Jen Blake in a match that I wrestled against her. And tell you one thing, I'm sure he can even do it now as hard as he could then back when I had him, and he can still choke a motherfucker with that $1 million dream. He's got a grip. I fucking, that's one thing I remember with him. Anyways, NXT ladder match, $1 million championship, really fucking cool match to watch. LA Knight versus wow, I want to fucking say Trevor Lee, but Cameron Grimes. Fucking Cameron Grimes took me some time to like in NXT, because I actually really dug him in Impact. I thought he was really cool shit, and wasn't on board with his character in NXT at first. But then I all of a sudden, once they, put this like redneck rich like gimmick to him, he's gold. He's fucking really good. And I think maybe it's because I really liked his wrestling style that I didn't like where they went with Cameron Grimes as a character at first, but he's found a way to blend it to really good. Obviously, he came up short in that against the former Eli Drake, LA Knight, but really good match. They did a lot of cool fucking spots. Cameron Grimes took a hell of a fucking ladder bump. And yeah, we have a new $1 million champion in 2021. And as this podcast goes on, I gotta say, they guys, they just gave the New Day and RK Bro some decent TV time. Like, good match. Again, not spoiler free. RK Bro picking up the fucking win, which I'm loving, because these guys are comedy. And if anybody can afford to take a loss, it's the New Day, because they've been fucking dope forever. So yeah, back to NXT and that ladder match. So yeah, 2021, new $1 million champion. Didn't think we would see that, but I mean, if you've been watching the product for the last couple months, I mean, you've seen it coming a mile away. And it was one of those things where you're like, I hope it leads to this. It only makes sense for it to lead to this. And then boom, we get it. We get the ladder, it's big gold ladder, $1 million belt, and the fucking briefcase up above, which is a good call, because I feel like you don't want that, like that one dropping from up in the air like that. It looks a little on the fragile side. Oh my god, I'm sorry. A product of watching Raw while we're doing this is I can't keep plugging them enough. RK Bro, Matt Riddle, such a fucking clown, and Randy Orton plays it up very, very well. So yeah, great weekend of wrestling. Raw actually seeming, off to a good start this good start / good midway point this week. I can't complain whatsoever. But yeah, we're gonna call it a wrap for this week. Let me know how you feel about the format. If you like it, I mean, we'll do a couple more this way. Maybe get some questions and some feedback. And yeah, until then, buy a t-shirt at PD Skillz Show. Go back, watch the other episodes at PD Skillz Show. I think what I'm getting at here is it's pretty easy to find me. And until next Tuesday, I'm PD Skillz. And no one else is here. Peace.